Anim Addo, and this is Strong and Sassy here on your Superstation Joy 99.7 FM. And this evening we're thanking God for life, for a day that hasn't been too hot, and for a conversation that's about to pop. I can promise you that. Once again, if you're just tuning in, welcome. This is Strong and Sassy. So tonight we're talking about the soft life. Growing up, I never heard anything like the soft life. Seems to be a phrase that popped up a few years ago, and now suddenly something we didn't know we wanted. We all want, the soft life. But of course, the question comes up. Well, for me, the question is, who funds the soft life? And it's funny because when Evans talked about wanting a soft life, I'd actually never thought about soft life in terms of men. It seems to be like a thing that, women talk about a lot and not men. So, maybe we'll talk about men having the soft life as well. Of course, they'll have to fund it themselves. Just kidding. All right, so that's what we're doing tonight. And joining me in the studio, we have Janet Sunkwa Mills, CEO of Janem Salon and Spa and chairperson for the executive committee of the Executive Women's Network. I got that right?
You did get it right.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Good evening and
My
welcome.
pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. And then we have Fafali, who is a business coach, CEO, SNS Legacy. She's a CEO for SNS Legacy Company Limited. Fafali, I didn't mention your full name because I didn't want to butcher it.
It's fine. It's Amengo.
Amengo.
Yes.
So Fafali Amengo. And joining us on the phone lines or on Zoom shortly will be Dr. Evelyn Owusu-Roberts. Now, Doc has been with us, I think for the past 3 or 4 weeks, so she's practically a part of the show now. But before we get into the conversation in studio, Mirabel went out on the streets, just getting, a general idea of what some people thought of the soft life.
I want the soft life because I deserve it. I believe, I was made for this. I was destined for it. And in fact, who doesn't want a soft life? Everybody wants a soft life and everybody deserves a soft life. Life is too hard. Life is too difficult not to want a soft life. Okay? Yeah, clock it.
I don't like stress. Anything stressful is... Basically, I don't want the stress that's it. So, yeah. The Odogu wife style, and that's on period.
I don't want to be stressed, living a life full of enjoyment, lifestyle, and look at me. Me, for instance, I change my hair like thrice in a week. So just imagine the money that goes into it, the food I eat and all that. Girl, come on, I can't kill myself.
I'm just a girl. It's every girl's dream to have a soft life, right? Working comes with a lot of stress. Even though we all have to work, we want the soft side to working alongside soft life. Yeah, it goes together. I can't be working and then be suffering. So if you have the money or the comfort, you have to pay for that soft life that you want. Pay for that comfort. Don't say I'm working hard, so I have to go through some stress or something.
Who doesn't like soft life? Why do I want soft life? Because I'm a soft girl.
Wow. All right. Interesting views there. Our text lines are open 055-1111-997, 055-1111-997. Tell me what you think of the soft life and what you would do for a soft life. All right, so I'm coming into studio now. Let me start with you, Janet. I don't even know where to start from, but soft life. When you hear people talk about, soft life, what are your initial thoughts for yourself, for other people, in terms of expectations, entitlement, all of that? What are your first thoughts when?
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity, and it's interesting listening into the views from the streets. You only get input from young ladies, isn't it? Quite interesting. But the terminology or the concept of soft life is new, really. and it's associated with everything that is easy. I hear from the streets, I don't want any stress, I want the soft life. So the presupposition is that if there's a soft life, then there's a hard life, isn't it? It's like two sides of the coins, the head and the tail, the yin and the yang. Whatever, the sun rises and it falls, there's day and there's night. So it's two sides to the same coin. If somebody is enjoying the soft life, then somebody must, on the flip side of the coin, be having a hard life for you to be able to enjoy the soft life. Now, my biggest question, because I'm a mother of young adults, and I'm asking myself, what is your value system as a human being? What means value to you? Is value that I do nothing and then I just get the money to finance the type of life that I want without working for it? Or your value is in I work and therefore I deserve to have the kind of pleasures that I get from my hard work? And there are aspects of so-called soft life which is not so bad, in the sense that you can opt for a life where you manage your work schedules and everything you do such that you're not faced, or you manage your stress situations. I was having a chat with a group of young adults, and they said, Auntie Jane, you know, as for me, I'm going to slay stress. And I'm like, what do you mean by slaying stress? And he says, I wouldn't let stress bother me. I said, but that's a good thing. When you don't allow people to influence you with their negative energy, that is good. When you learn to say no to people crossing your boundaries, that is good. When you learn to take time off to look after your mental wellness, that is actually good. When you learn to take time to look after yourself, make yourself pretty or handsome for that matter, watch a movie. I like watching K-drama. Watch K-drama, binge watch something.
The
Korean drama. Oh. Yes. That is actually, I love it. It makes me relax.
Okay.
When you take time to go to a spa and have a massage, all these examples I'm giving are examples of the so-called soft life. But actually in everyday life, it's time we make for rest and time we make to take care of ourselves. But the thing is, you have to work for that, because the one who finances it, I guess in this situation, the man is financing it. You are their trophy, yeah? Because they pay for it. And therefore, they use you as their trophy. You want to be used? Really? Have you thought about the other side as well? That I'm being used, that I have no value except what the man gives me? I really don't find value in this so-called soft life without making time to work for it. Who are you? Who is your identity? What makes you human? What value are you adding to yourself? What value are you adding to your family? What value are you adding to your society? You care less about any of these, apart from the one who was talking about, I change my hairstyle every week. I mean, these are frivolities of life. And from my perspective, I don't believe this adds value to who you are as a human being, male or female.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for your initial thoughts. Fafali, what's about you?
Okay, so I think Jana said everything that I have in mind.
She did, right?
Yes, so soft life, I would say, is very subjective. What's a soft life to you? But judging from what these ladies said, I think they are getting it all wrong. When we say soft life, let me also use myself as an example. Mine is Friday evening alone, without any kids, watching TV. That is my soft life. Here lies a case where a young lady is saying changing her hair 3 times a week. That's very unrealistic. So even if that's what you want to do, are you willing to fund that soft life? If you want a soft life, what price are you going to pay to get a soft life? Are you willing to live the hard life in order to get a soft life?
Yeah.
Or you are expecting someone else to take care of you. So that's where the problem comes in. Social media has made it in such a way that everybody portrays a certain picture they want someone to see. You don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Probably someone gets a pack of flowers every Wednesday, right? And you think it's soft life and you want it. Probably is that person's soft life. They have extra income to get themselves the flowers, but you don't have it. So it's a very dicey situation. What is your soft life? What does it mean to you? And what are you willing to do to get your soft life? You should also know that you must not lose touch with reality, because social media has made it in such a way that someone is living a better life, but behind the scenes you might even be living a more better life than them. So that's what I think about this whole soft life concept. But generally I think it's been greatly misunderstood.
Yeah. I mean, I look at the PDD trial, for example, and I listened to portions of Cassie's testimony, what was available. I mean, and many years ago, when she was a typical example of a soft life, a kept woman, beautiful, taking care of, all of that. And years later, we're hearing all the grueling details of what she had to endure for the life that she wanted. So last week when we were on the show, I asked the question that it would seem as if a lot more young women are more interested in investing in themselves in such a way to attract a man who can finance a certain type of life, as opposed to investing in themselves to be able to pay for the type of life that they want. It's not really something I understand, but Janet, let me come to you. I mean, I'm sure you've encountered, these kinds of conversations, where you find women who are very, very, very invested in, I need to attract a rich man. So they are going to specific places. They're doing all the body enhancements. They're doing all the spiritual concoctions for girls, for boys, all sorts of things. What are your thoughts on that? And what's your advice on that?
I think, Animwaa, thank you very much. I think these are fleeting and these are frivolous, like I said. Okay, so let's picture the scenario. You've enhanced yourself, you look attractive for the man, and usually, I have boys, I have brothers, I don't have sisters, although I operate in an environment with many women. So I tend to understand a little bit the male perspective of things, in the sense that, pretty women, people like to be associated with everything beautiful and everything nice. And actually, you yourself, Animwaa, when you feel pretty, you feel like you're on top of the world, isn't it? And at that particular point in time, the adrenaline rushing, because actually beauty can be a currency, whether we like it or not. When somebody enters this room and they're pretty versus the other one who, for sake of discussion today, is not that pretty, the pretty one attracts attention. So beauty is a currency, let's face it. However, it can be very empty when it is not backed with substance. So you're pretty, the man acquires you, takes you home, you're on his shoulder. Everybody was like, in fact, you enhance the man's image because he's working with somebody who is pretty and attractive. Immediately heads turn, everybody's looking. Those who are looking at that pretty girl with that man, there's another man who is also looking at that pretty girl, right? So suddenly you become a trophy that people have to acquire. And the more you get attention, the more you feel good. You believe that, yes, I am, I don't know, I have arrived, that kind of vibe. It is so empty. I've met so many women who have gone through that and actually have been married even by rich men. And then a few years down the road, the man is looking for another trophy. You know what I mean? So you are in that relationship and you have no value. So it is actually a risk. If you like, take it. You can have the soft life. You can have the Oga wife. They call it Oga wife. So Oga sponsors me and everything. And if that means value to you, like Fafali was saying, it's so subjective, isn't it? If that empty life has value for you, by all means, go ahead. There have been so many examples of situations where people have grown to realize that happiness is not money. Financial wealth does not guarantee you happiness. So I think that people should rethink. Maybe for a particular point in your life, you feel that you need the finances. Let's face it, you need money for your accommodation, for food. I mean, if you're a student, for your education and everything. But I beg to differ that that is the right way to go. From my perspective, it is not. It's better to have the physical beauty because it opens doors, but you have to back it with substance and you have to back it with value. That is more long lasting than the fleeting one. That's from my perspective.
Right. Okay. Fafali, did you want to add?
Yes. What I want to say is this particular topic. I was discussing this topic with my little sister and then a friend of mine, and I think we have been misinformed. The young girls of today have been misinformed. I don't know if I don't think it's a thing of today. I think it's a thing of a stage. When you're at a certain stage, probably in your early 20s to maybe mid or late 20s, your idea is to find a wealthy man to buy you that car. Your idea is to get the soft life. Your parents have probably drummed into your ears that don't bring home a broke man. So in conversations as a young girl, I have been there before. We always looked for, a man who has a certain type of car, a certain kind of job, this and this and that. But the idea of working to obtain the thing that we want, it wasn't really at the forefront of our discussion.
Yeah.
Because I want a car. Maybe I'll meet a man who'll buy me a car. The conversation would never be, let me just get a job and get myself a car. So, like I was saying, probably is a thing of stage rather than a thing of recent happenings. It is a thing of stage. So it goes back to what I was saying, that we have been misinformed. I don't know whether the people ahead of us are failing the people who are behind us. Any chance that I get, as I sit here, I try to advise young people as much as I can that if you find a man to take care of you, to buy you a house, to give you a soft life, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what if that doesn't happen? Why don't you find something doing for yourself? You want the vacation, why don't you find a job? You want the handbag, why don't you get a job? So that is where I stand when this whole soft life thing topic comes in. My problem is that as young women, we need to be educated about the truth that the solution of getting what we want doesn't lie with a man or a third party. It should start within us. So I was watching this video somewhere, yesterday, and someone was saying that if you want a certain lifestyle for yourself, don't wait for someone to do it for you. Have that lifestyle first. So this may sound a bit vain, but it's just to emphasize more on my point. So there's this lady who walks into a fancy store to get herself a very expensive jewelry, right? She wanted to buy just one. She saved up. When she got there, she came out with 3 because there was maybe a man somewhere who thought, oh, okay, this is a lady who can take care of herself. She's doing this and this, and she can buy this for herself. Why don't I just support her? So the point is, you have to put yourself in a situation whereby even without a man or a third party, you will be able to get yourself the things you want. In that case, even if an extra money or whatever comes in, it just becomes an extra. With or without a third party, you are good on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Jenna, let me come to you. So I know that realistically speaking, in our culture, in our society, it seems as if men have it a little bit more easier making money at a certain level. I mean, if we talk about, for example, pay gaps, pay disparity, all of those things, just generally. But also I think maybe even as entrepreneurs, there are a lot more wealthier men than they are women in Ghana, for example. There are certain heights that women find difficult to reach. So the question really is why? And then the second question would be, what, in your opinion, what do you think it will take for women to be able to break through that barrier? Because I think that if we were taught and we began to believe that we could be equally wealthy, that we could equally have all those things, then maybe we would stop looking to other people or men, to fund a certain lifestyle, which also then robs us of our ability to actually live authentic lives. Because if somebody is paying for your house, somebody has bought you a car and he buys you it is where he tells you to go that you go. If someone's paying for your house, he probably has a spare key. He will show up whenever he wants to show up. And there are lots of women who have never experienced the joy of being able to pay their own bills, But I feel like it's definitely a mindset. So there's something in our minds that, we've been taught that somehow we can't make it. So again, what's your opinion on that? And how do we begin, to fix it? We may not be able to fix it for ourselves, but for our daughters and the generations that are coming.
But that's quite an interesting subject. I belong to Executive Women Network, and this is a group of executive women leaders in top positions in Ghana who come together to inspire and support each other, role model for each other, to be the very best versions of themselves. In addition to that, we lift as we rise. So we have mentoring programs for young girls in tertiary educations. As I'm speaking, on Saturday we'll be flying to Tamale to do such a thing. I mentor a lot of young girls, so I understand what you're talking about. In the celebration of International Women's Day, these are some of the things that come up: gender inequity, disparity in salaries, etc. And we know that. And we are all working towards that, building the confidence in young women, actually within ourselves as well. So this is not a debate, right?
Yeah.
The situation is real. How do we bridge the gap? First thing, of course, is the education and the capacity building. But there's something that keeps occurring to me, and I don't want to compare us to men for now. Sometimes, like we say in Ghana, you don't cut your coat according to your size.
Yeah.
And where your value system, I keep harping back into value systems and knowing who you are, because it's so fundamental. We've come to a stage in Ghana, I really can't pinpoint when it started happening, where the optics is what determines your value. What shoe are you wearing? What bag are you holding? What is the brand? How long is your wig? What perfume, etc., has become what determines your value. And therefore, people clamor towards that. I want to have this Gucci bag, this, that. And the more you focus on that, the more you are tempted to place yourself in a situation where you go seeking a man to finance that. You mentioned it. The one who finances you controls you and tells you to back, and you have to back, right? Because he will give you the money. So I'll encourage all young ladies, in fact, men as well, if you're listening to us today, please go back. What means value to you? I remember in university, I was telling a younger brother of mine, there was no day or no vacation period where I was not doing an internship somewhere. And through that, I networked, I got to know people in influential places. I actually got a job before I finished my second degree, before I finished writing my exams, because I had networked in the right places. I have made contacts with organizations and institutions that I wanted to work in. And therefore, straight from school, I started working in Nestle, and I worked in Nestle for 20 years. I've had so many remarkable opportunities in Nestle. Look, there are opportunities for you to live a good life, a value-based life, a life that makes you proud of who you are. You understand? You can choose the easy way out, but that easy way out has repercussions.
Yeah.
It has consequences. And if you're prepared to build that legacy for yourself, don't forget, I always say this, when you're going to get married, they're like, oh, we want to know which house you're from. Immediately you're born into a branded household, right? You say, oh, this household is full of lawyers, is full of teachers. Oh, they are drunkards, they are this, they are this. Who do you think built those legacies? It's those behaviors. Do you understand? So if you are busy living the so-called soft life, the one that is common parlance, know the kind of legacy you're building, not only for yourself, but for your family and the generations unborn, including your children. Think about that. Do you understand? So, yes, there's work to do. Yes, cut your coat according to your size. Yes, there are opportunities for you to live an honest, decent life.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know people say cut your coat according to your size. I've always wondered why it isn't cut your coat according to your cloth. Because you may be too big for the amount of cloth that you have. So if you're cutting it according to your size,
so size is used as an imagery.
Yeah.
Right? They don't mean size, your physical size.
Yeah.
The size of your wallet, the size of the clothes. The size is just a metaphor.
I think it's also a great way to say that sometimes you have to change who you see yourself to be to actually see who you are, so that you can actually make decisions accordingly.
Anyway, we just talked about your self-identity.
Yeah.
If I asked you, do you know you very well? Do you know you? Do you know what makes you tick? Do you know what you like, what you dislike? Your boundaries. Do you know you? Or you are so obsessed about the size of my hips, the thinness of my waist, the length of my wig, the optics, like I call it.
Yeah.
A lot of people are working not knowing who they truly are.
I mean, someone will argue, if you talk about Maslow's theory of needs, for example, someone will argue that, I don't need to know who I truly am. I don't have time for those kinds of questions when I can't put food on the table, or when, I'm a single mom and I can't look after my kids. Like, am I now coming to introspect? Like, I have hungry mouths to feed. And what I have is a beautiful face. I have wide hips. I have a small waist. I can look nice and I can attract, this. So, which brings me to my question. And I'm starting with you, Fafali, on this one. If you're looking at things like self-identity, realization and all those things, and you juxtapose that against somebody who cannot afford to do anything, and the only true way out for them that they can see is to make themselves something or someone to be auctioned to the highest bidder, and that is something that looks lucrative. How do you approach someone, how do you advise someone like that and say, oh, there's this way which may be the higher way or the better? Like, I can't feed my family, what are you talking about? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. That is why I say that there's a missing link somewhere. Why is that the first option? Isn't there any other options? Is the first option because it is something that has been established for the longest period? So to tackle such a situation, changing a person's mindset isn't so easy. Typically, what I would do is I'll just leave the person go experience it for themselves. If I am in the capacity of talking to you, I'll do that. But when you go and you find out that everything is not as it seems, I think you'll be able to, learn some lessons from that. But my whole point is that there has to be a change from the bottom. There has to be a deep change, because as you rightly said, some people see no other way.
Yeah.
It's even terrible to the extent that when people see a genuinely successful young lady or even old lady, they think the money is coming from a man. Probably it's not, but it's because of how this thing has been established and imprinted in us. And I don't want to say it's an African thing or a Ghanaian thing. I think it's a global thing, because there was this lady on social media who called herself the trophy wife, teaching women how to bag men, right?
Rich men.
Yes. So she seemed, it seemed everything was going on well with her, living the life, until recently she came out to say that the man was actually abusing their own kids. Okay, so it takes stories like this to change the mindset. This is a person who has been through it. This is a person who has learned. She's speaking from experience. So she will stand a better chance of talking to someone, for talking to someone. I hope you understand. So I still stand on my point that it's much more deep than this. It goes way deeper. And I think we have a lot of work to do when it comes to shifting the mindset of people, both men and women. We have to shift it to such an extent that anytime a woman is in need, the first thing that comes to their mind should be that they should go out and look for job. The first thing that comes into their mind shouldn't be that a wealthy man should find me and marry me.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done, and it borders on us as women who have other women around us to teach the ladies the way to go about it. And also, I think that there has to be much more exposure. Right now, social media is both, good and bad, okay? Social media is pushing negative agenda. At the same time, it is pushing positive agenda. You see a lot of young ladies doing exploits online. Some of them have their businesses. Some of them have... I saw a lady who was a painter, right? She's a painter, and she keeps advising girls that come and learn this thing, come and learn this thing. So I think social media can also be used, positively in that light, because we need to show the ladies that the first option isn't to get with a man to get a comfortable life. You can actually make it. You can take a course, you can learn a skill, and then you can, get the life that you want. Others have done it, and I think anybody who puts their mind to can also do it.
You will also be able to do. Well, thank you for that. Joining us on Zoom is Dr. Evelyn Owusu Roberts. She's a licensed clinical psychologist. Hi, Doc. Again, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Animwaa. How are you? I'm good.
I'm very well. It's good. Good to see you, and thank you so much for joining us. So, if you can just take us through, the psyche of a woman looking for a rich man to rescue her from the perils of life. What does that look like?
So I think when it comes to that, there are lots of factors from a logical perspective. So for one, we are looking at their mind, their mindset, right? We are looking at also like how they think, and what comes up when in terms of their thinking. We're also looking at the environment. We're also looking at what influences have they had, right? And whether it's social media, whether it's their upbringing, whether it's the friends that they have in their social environment. How does all of these things come together to basically sway them a certain way, or to have a certain lens or a certain perspective when it comes to life, and how one makes it, and how one succeeds, and what that looks like. So psychologically speaking, we look at the mind, we look at even emotions, right? Emotions attached to some of these things. And we look at values, the values that someone has. And then also looking at even the biology, right? The biological makeup. We have different personalities, right? And so depending on your personality, you are more likely to have a certain viewpoint when it comes to the whole idea of a soft life and how you make it, or what that might even mean to you.
Sorry, we've talked about in studio some of the conversations that we've had, with our parents or with our children, the socialization, the reason why we feel like that's the way out. How do we begin? And we've answered this, but of course I want your opinion. How do we begin to change the mindset? I'm mindful though, Doc, that sometimes in conversations like this, it can look as if we're totally against it. I think if you meet someone you love who is wealthy, that's amazing. But the chances of you meeting someone you love who's wealthy is not very high, because obviously the ratio is not, it's not a fair ratio, but of course, if that's you, then that's fine. I don't want it to come out, across as if we're actually criticizing people who are with the love of their lives, who, are millionaires, you know what I mean? But how do we have conversations so that, even being in a relationship or getting married or making yourself attractive does not become about, a man's ability to provide a certain sort of life that you desire, when you actually may not like the man? Because I'm sure you've met people like that, to people who are just with really rich men who they dislike, and they speak like, oh, I must tolerate him, I can't, I can smell his, this. So how do we, basically.
Yeah, so I think it really starts from the home, if and who brings up a child, right? So if you are bringing up, whoever your guardian may be, whoever is responsible for a child in their upbringing, the mindset that develops can start there, and there can be intentionality where that is concerned. Because if you bring up a child, a female child especially, with the mentality that when you grow up, you get married, and that is where your success is. That's where your blessing is only going to come from. Then that becomes a little bit of a challenge. But when you bring up a child to have that self-efficacy, that self-confidence, that they can make it, they are going to be successful. And these are the steps to do that, to be able to train them in the house, to let them know, okay, even as early as, even with something as simple as chores at home, even with their schoolwork, even with how you help them to remain organized, how you help them to be responsible. It really starts at home. It starts with how you're bringing up a child, and it can't be something that it has to be conversations, that happens. As a child is growing, as they are getting to the stage they are starting to like boys, it's also an opportunity to have conversations with them about some of these things, right? Obviously, at an age appropriate manner, because that becomes continuing conversation that happens. So these are some of the ways to try to, maneuver the whole idea of a soft life, and bringing up the self-efficacy, especially of the female child.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I keep on not turning on my mic. We did a poll on Twitter, and the question was, what does living the soft life really mean to you? So the options were zero stress, financial freedom, doing what I love, escaping hustle culture. So let me ask you guys, let's take the poll. Let me start with you, Janet. So what does living the soft life really mean to you? Is it zero stress? Is it financial freedom? Is it doing what you love? Or is it escaping hustle culture? You have to choose one. Twitter will not allow you to do all. You have to choose one. You have to choose. What would be at the top of it for you if you were doing this on Twitter and you had to pick one?
If I had to pick one, it's like having my me time without any stress.
So doing what I love?
Doing what I love.
Okay. That's the soft life
for me, yes.
Okay. Fafali, what would yours be?
What I love.
So
doing what I love, definitely. Yes.
Doing what? Okay. So let me ask you guys a question. This might be a bit personal, but forgive me, and it's okay if you don't want to answer. Financially, I'm thinking of a nice way to ask the question, because so are you on? Okay, let me put it this way: on the Maslow's theory of needs, you're gone past worrying about what you eat, right?
Yes.
And paying bills and all of that. So you're able to say doing what you love,
yes,
is the soft life.
Yes.
So does it mean that it's the same for you, Fafali, right? You're
it's
not
the same for
having
me.
these financial issues, where
No.
exactly. So would you say that the foundation of a soft life is financial freedom?
I don't think so. I think the foundation of it is your mindset and your value system, straight from the get-go. Because I'm not concerned about my food, shelter, clothing because I worked towards it.
I couldn't remember the food, shelter, clothing.
Yes.
That's what, yeah.
The Maslow food,
Yeah,
shelter, clothing.
food, shelter.
And I wanted to add to that discussion because what is food, what is shelter, and what is clothing is all subjective. I can decide that I can invest 100 cedis for kontomire and apim. And somebody will say that is not food, but I need 1,000 cedis to eat lettuce, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, I'm going back to cut your coat according to your size. If you can afford apim,
Which
eat
is not
it.
cheap anymore.
It's not cheap
It's actually
anymore,
not
but it's
cheap
relatively. So
Yeah,
we're talking
yeah,
about
yeah, of course.
relativity here. I can live in this mansion versus I can have a decent home where there are mosquitoes. When it's rain, there's no flood, blah, blah, blah. Clothing. I can decide that even if I cannot afford to, I will go to Animwaa Glamour, which is second-hand clothing, get something decent, versus I want to have a Gucci this. So it's all relative, right? So you have to spend on what you can afford and work hard towards it. You know, you just asked a question about, there are aspects of self-life which is really good, like focusing on me time, having my mental health, making sure I draw my boundaries, making sure I take time for myself, making sure my environment is clean, I have some nice scented candles. Those are all aspects of soft life, but it's balanced with working towards it. The problem comes where there is no balance. I talked about the yin and the yang, two sides of the same coin. You just want the soft and you want somebody to do the hard to finance your soft. That is where the problem is.
Right, yeah. Okay, I get that. Did you want to add anything to that before I continue?
She said basically everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, question again was, what does living the soft life really mean to you? The options were zero stress, financial freedom, doing what I love, and escaping hustle culture. The reason I talked about financial freedom is that option was taken by 56% of those who responded. So the biggest thing that most people will associate with a soft life is financial freedom. The second thing was zero stress. And then the third thing was doing what I love. And then the final thing was escaping hustle culture.
So I'm sure it depends on the age group you're talking to.
Yeah, I mean, well,
It
it's
depends.
Twitter, so we can't really.
Yeah.
But you know, the funny thing is, there are lots of older women who are struggling financially. You know, I'm in my 40s. I'll sit at a table with women who are in their 40s and 50s, and they're still looking for rich men.
Of course.
You
Can
know
I
what
tell you
mean?
something?
Yeah.
EWN, I talked about EWN. Yeah, these are women who supposedly have gotten it all put together. We have what we call a sister-to-sister chat. Guess what the topic is?
What?
The hustle is real. Surviving or thriving on multiple incomes. The fact of the matter is, even I thrive on multiple sources of income. So, yes, women, and I'm sure some men, also need that financial support. But the thing is to be ready to work for it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. That's what we're discussing here. It's not that people don't have financial issues or they don't have stresses. Don't we all have stress?
Absolutely. We
But
do.
it's about how we manage it, right?
Yes.
And how we fuel it. So I don't think the debate is the existence or non-existence of that. But the debate is how you finance it.
Yeah.
And whether you're prepared to balance the aspect of the soft with the hard.
With the hard, yeah.
It cannot be that you don't want to work for it.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
no.
impossible.
And it's
Yes.
funny because even those who are looking for a rich man or all of that, they still have to work. I mean, I hear some really gory stories about the specificities that come sometimes with dating a man who is financing your life. I mean, I know some women who are constantly lasering different parts of their bodies because that is the way that
The compromises and the risks that
things must be. You know, they're dating someone who maybe they don't see for 8 months, and then it's 2 weeks of just constant, you know, it's like it's mad, you know. And so it's, even with that, there's a certain amount, you know, of work. But I mean, the question is, again, like you said, what are your values and what do you really want?
I mean, do you respect yourself enough? Ask yourself, when you're being taken through that because somebody finances your lifestyle, that you probably would have imposed on yourself because you want to look like this and that. How low can you go?
Some women may argue that it's worth it.
It's
Ah,
really
well.
not. It's really not, because if you have all the money in the world and you're suffering, that's not soft life at all. What they are not told is the emotional torture that comes with some abusive relationships.
Yeah.
You mentioned Cassie, and I feel sorry for the lady. And I think there was another lady who was also in the same soup as
Yeah,
her.
Jane
She, in her case, she had a job. She had her social content thing going on well with her.
Yeah.
And then she meets this guy, and then her mistake was agreeing on the terms of the guy. Before the guy, you were okay, you were making your money online. But this man comes along and is giving you 10,000 CDs, $10,000 stipends monthly. You can make more than that. But why? Is it that you don't have self-worth? Is it that you lack self-esteem? What is the reason? So I don't think it's only got to do with finance, but sometimes it goes a little deeper than that. Probably be
Some
prestige.
insecurities and
Yes,
stuff like
probably,
Trauma,
yes.
daddy
Because why would you
issues, so many
leave your
different
lucrative job to follow a man
Yeah.
and live on his terms? So it goes way beyond that.
Yeah. Right. Let me take some of your messages before we go. This one says, I believe a soft life is working hard to be able to afford stuff that will make life easier, like a washing machine, a dishwasher, etc. Anymore, great conversation. Soft life is good and desirable as long as you work and fund it. What's dangerous is when the soft life means someone else must fund it. You remember what Lady Deborah went through with the bank manager? I rest.
Great.
Frederick, thank you for that. Sterling says, Ayeko, I'm following your discussion and it's interesting. In fact, it's heartbreaking to notice that today, majority of young women have this only mindset to find a man of good substance and wealth because they believe in their beauty. We really have a great job to do as far as our generation is concerned. Francis says, this soft life thing, where I told you ladies get it from, it's an issue all over among young girls in our tertiary institutions, coming down to our communities now. Ladies are using their back on the bed of men to finance this soft life. It's time our own mothers rise up. If we have this kind of conversation on Mother's Day, it will be a good thing for daughters to learn from. Thank you for that, Francis. I think that also it's about balance. And like Jenna said, beauty is not a bad thing, and it is currency. And if you know how to use it, and like I said, if you fall in love with somebody who is wealthy, not necessarily because of their money, but because of who they are. And the thing is, wealth has a lot to do with, who you are and what you're able to achieve. So the right things for the right reasons, basically. Doc, we have like 45 seconds. So the last 45 seconds are yours.
Thank you. Is there a question or
No, just your final thoughts, just on everything.
I think at the end of the day, when it comes to the soft life, there is the advantages and the disadvantages. So when we are looking at having there be like that work-life balance, pursuing your mental health, and making sure that you are really keeping your stress levels in check, and living an intentional life. I think when it comes to that perspective, then pursuing a soft life, basically means being intentional, right? And at the end of the day, having a soft life is not a curse. Like, it's a blessing. Like, this is something that God actually wants for us. So the soft life in itself is not a bad thing. And where it becomes a problem is when it's the means by which people use to pursue that soft life. And so really looking at the fact that sometimes that we really have within us, all the skills, all the capacity, like whatever it takes, whether it's prayer, whether it's networking, whether it's whatever it is to be able to get to where you need to get to. Sometimes there are seemingly hopeless situations, but in that, there's always a way, finding a mentor, finding someone who, can lend a hand, and even society as a whole, also has a role to play when it comes to helping, especially young women who sometimes feel like the only alternative is basically, sleeping with someone to get a certain sort of life. Yeah. Mothers also, parents, guardians, big sisters, and whoever a little girl is around. That whoever a little girl's community is also made up of, everyone has a responsibility to try to guide the little children, the younger ones, so that they build that self-confidence to support them to become like fully self-actualized people at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. That's Dr. Evelyn Owusu Roberts. And I think, thank you so much for that. That was Dr. Evelyn Owusu Roberts. And I think when she said that God wants that for us, she was referring to 3 John chapter 1, verse 2, which says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. So definitely God wants a soft life for us, but I don't think that he wants us to do that by, pawning ourselves off and being less than everything that we should be according to our God-given purpose. Well, that's us. I'm from Strong and Sassy. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so grateful. I know you could be anywhere, but you chose to stay with us for this 1 hour. A big thank you to my guests, Janet Sunkwa Mills, Dr. Evelyn Owusu Roberts, and Fafali Amengo. Thank you so much for taking time out to be here. Really appreciate it. Thank you to the team for putting everything together. My name is Animwaa Anim Addo, and if God wills, we'll be back next week, Wednesday at 7 o'clock. If you missed any part of the show, it's on Facebook. You can take your time, analyze, cut comments, do your thing. We love you. Thank you so much. Coming up next, I would say, is the news, but it has passed. So Kofi Hayford coming in with Overdrive. Stay tuned in.